call the meeting to order, please. If you'd please rise to honor our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Conway?
Here.
Mr. Gignac?
Here.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Under minutes, we have approval of minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of Wednesday, February 15th, 2012. Move for approval by Ms. Sikwich, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have permission to enter for March 7th, 2012. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. Yes, to Mid-America Administrative and Retirement Solutions Incorporated for $43,875 to provide plan administration, professional review, and IRS tax and regulatory compliance services for the Lowell School's 403B investment programs, which are funded from voluntary salary reductions made by eligible employees of the Lowell Public Schools. This 3-year contract expires on December 31st, 2014, and fees will be paid under this contract as based on the actual numbers participating from the Lowell Public School staff. The funding will be provided by the local budget, Superintendent Office Contracted Services. To Landmark School Incorporated for $17,830 to provide for the out-of-district tuition costs for one student enrolled in receiving services as outlined in their special education IEP, funding provided by the school department special education tuition account.
By Committeewoman Martin, seconded by Ms. Rosikowicz. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? 7 yeas, approved.
Thank you. We have 3 memorials tonight. The first is Nora Nani Louise Sinaki Wilk, mother of Joanne Cupa, Executive Secretary to the Assistant Superintendent, and Edward Wilk, retired Butler Middle School teacher, and mother-in-law of Ann Wilk, retired Lowell High School teacher. We also have Teresa A. Sullivan Ward, mother of Maureen Ward Nault, Assistant Principal of the Pine Arts School. And finally, George Babalitos, father of Deborah Smith, retired Special Education Assistant Administrator, and grandfather of Jillian Gorman, a Butler School teacher. Would you please rise in a moment of silence and darken chambers? May they rest in peace. Next, we have motions. The first is by Mr. Conway and Mr. Gignac to ask the superintendent to direct the headmaster to develop programs and strategies that will improve or enhance the dropout rate, attendance, tardiness, and college admissions. This already has a second. Mr. Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The information that came forward back last week, when we took a look at we found out that the dropout rate at the high school has doubled. Needless to say, I think this is very disturbing. It needs to be addressed immediately. If we take a look at, in the past, we certainly have found that Lowell High School has been praised. It's been praised in Boston Magazine a number of times, and I just hate to see a dropout rate, a negative, appear like this. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent, I'd like to ask the superintendent a couple of questions here. You know, when we take a look at dropout rate, attendance, tardiness, college admissions, Madam Superintendent, it all ties in together. When you look at it, it looks like they're all separate, but in reality, it makes up the total picture. There were programs and policies or procedures that were put into place over the years, and I'm wondering whether you could take a look and see if they're still in place. These are programs that have worked in the past. And for example, we used to have and I don't know if we still have it, a student-generated progress report that came out. You know, and I think that what I've talked to people in the past, and I've asked them some questions on it, and you know, does it happen? Oh yeah, it does. But you talk to the majority of the people, and it doesn't happen on a regular basis. When you're dealing with over 3,000 students, Madam Superintendent, it is a constant battle to make sure that they're in class, they're graduating, they're going on to post-secondary education, and it's something that it's continual. The student-generated progress report, this was you know, and I think some people are probably confused. They probably never even heard of it before. It certainly was a document that was between the student and the parent, and it was generated out of a guidance office, a housemaster's office, and it was to give an update on how that progress, student's progress was during that day or during that week, and I found it to be very effective. We also had MCC Day, and again, people might say, what is that all about? You know, that was when we wanted to try to make sure that students didn't fall through the cracks. And we invited Middlesex Community College over to the high school, and we sat down with Dr. Molly Sheehy, Maria Cunha, and they helped to put this program together where all the department heads came to the high school and they went through the little theater. Every senior, and it was right around April or May, every senior went in there and listened to what Middlesex Community College offered. And the enrollment, college admission enrollment, doubled because of that program. Is that program still in existence now? Is it still working? We had the Laptops for Lowell program, and I know that they've changed the name. You know, that was a program that certainly helped curtail the cutting. It encouraged students to go on to college, post-secondary education. And is it being done? Or is it being done effectively? That's the key. And there are a number of other programs. I don't want to go on and on and on, but the fact is, all these programs working together in conjunction helps to save the kids and helps to move them on in a successful next stage of their life. And again, Madam Superintendent, I know that you inherited this problem with the doubled dropout rate. But I think going forward, obviously people are going to be looking now and saying, how do we solve this problem? What type of procedures and processes are we going to put into place to make sure we turn this around? So I certainly hope that, and it's going to be a collective works of a number of different people working together on this to make sure that we do have success and we change those numbers around. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. I would like the whole committee and the city to know that I have met with the high school team, all the department chairs, all the housemasters, with a concerted effort looking at data. We looked at failure rate, we're looking at dropout rate over time, we're looking at individual students, we're looking at gaps. That was the first stage. A dropout rate increasing is very serious. It will not happen again. We need to be on every single student. We need to know exactly what's happening. If, in fact, we need to start doing business differently, then we need to start doing differently. We have to look at children, repeat classes, how we're spending funding, how the resources we have for young people, that's all we're looking at. Tomorrow morning, Assistant Superintendent Ian Murphy and I have a meeting specifically with the housemasters and the headmaster to look at if, in fact, programs that have been successful over time have continued. I also am meeting with the attendance officer as part of that to just see what's happening with attendance, with kids attending class, all of those issues that start to get young people disengaged. Many of you may know that when we brought one of the guidance counselors back from the LeBlanc School to Lowell High School because the caseload was very heavy, that we put that particular guidance counselor with children who we considered to be at risk. And the caseload from other, is a little bit lower for that particular person. But we have to start thinking about what are the best outcomes. And we have been doing business the same way for a number of years. And so we have to look at what this group of young people needs for outcomes. So we're looking at that. I know that there are many staff, high school works hard, and they're totally challenged by this change in the statistics. But it takes all of us. And we will be meeting the next time. I broke down meetings with principals and assistant principals in central office into levels. So at the next middle and high school meeting, we'll start talking about this is not just a Lowell High School program. We have to look systemically about where, in fact, we know people need to be successful. So I will keep you informed. And this motion will be sent directly to the high school tomorrow morning. I'll actually bring it to my meeting to talk about what is going to happen and what are the timelines for solutions. This is not, and I don't believe any of the motions should be sitting on lists, that actively each motion now is going to be sent to each person who is responsible for answering it with timelines. We have got to look collectively at lots of different strategies that have to be put in place. And it's very serious, Mr. Conway and Mr. Gignac. So this motion is something we're working on, but something I expect to report out on as we go, and something I think at Lowell High School subcommittee meetings or we need to be reporting out on. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Mr. Gignac and then Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When these figures were released to the committee, I became extremely concerned, mainly at the fact that 150 juniors and seniors dropped out last year. That's extremely alarming to me. And then you look back at the past 6 years, and as you indicated through communication, that through those 6 years, our dropout rate was decreasing consistently. This year, it doubled, and that's unacceptable. And I want to know what was working those 6 years and what wasn't working and what changed, because something had to have changed. And we spend a lot of money on all sorts of GED programs, alternative diploma programs through various vendors. And I was thinking at our last meeting, we have a UTEC that does a GED program, and they could only enroll 18 young adults at this point in the year, when realistically they have 273 to work with. I don't know if that's a correct figure. However, I'm extremely concerned with this, and I appreciate your comments in where you're bringing this. I truly do. And but I can assure you that I will be looking into it on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think certainly in terms of first steps, the idea of bringing this motion to your team at the high school to kind of come up with a plan is the appropriate step to be taking at this point. I think one of the key things that needs to be part of that conversation that I would hope and encourage you to be part of it, is it really is going to be incumbent upon the high school administration to be able to reassure this committee is the least of their problems. They need to reassure our community that what they're doing to address what is a critically important failure, how they're planning not only on reporting it out, because I think, certainly it will be instructive for all of us to see what the plans are, what we're going to be using as benchmarks. That's all going to be valuable information. But at the end of the day, every one of them is going to be held accountable, just like everyone, all of you, all of us, will all be held accountable for how we address what is a critical failure of this district. So, as you're working with this team, as you're crafting how we're going to kind of address this, I think it's also critically important that we include in that what the reporting process is going to be like. Again, it may be an issue where the high school subcommittee takes this on a monthly basis. I'll keep throwing meetings at you, Dave, don't worry. But I think that this is, I look at this as a motion, and in all honesty, I know where it's coming from, but I'm incredulous that this has to be a motion. We're having a motion to talk about dropout rates. It's just, this has to be our absolute bread and butter. It is at the center of everything we do, starting in preschool, bringing them right through high school. So if we're failing at that point, if we're failing our students, it's incumbent upon us to rein this in quickly, to put real pressure on all of us sitting here and everyone who's part of this, who's going to be part of this solution, that we get real plans, that they have real benchmarks attached to them. Timelines, again, very valuable, but that we really are addressing this in an aggressive way where we are reporting not even just to our school community. Again, our community as a whole needs to be holding our feet to the fire on this. So I think that this is something that we can't stress enough, the importance of. Mr. Gignac will be watching, we'll all be watching, to see exactly how this is addressed, how aggressively it's addressed, and how we can really go out into our community and say with confidence that we're solving a problem. Because to fail this many students, and I mean it in terms of our failure to them, is simply unacceptable and needs to be addressed absolutely immediately.
Thank you. Mr. Conway?
Just very quickly, and I echo the comments from my colleague, Ms. Martin. She's absolutely right. The community as a whole is looking at this and saying, what are we doing with our schools? What is happening? How do you take a school that is highlighted in Boston Magazine a number of times, and that people are praising, and then all of a sudden our dropout rate doubles? It's something that you certainly have to analyze. I think, and also what Ms. Martin said about, sometimes, when we put motions on because in many instances we really, we enjoy putting a certain motion on because it brings out the positive things that are going on in a school system, and that we can highlight them. This particular situation, this was not, this was a very, it was a problem trying to put this together, because I look at it and I say to myself, I can't believe the dropout rate would have doubled in 1 year. Is the reporting the same? I think that when we analyze this whole thing with the administration, perhaps we're going to get a different answer that might help solve some of the problem. But I think the suggestion by my colleague that we get this into a subcommittee so that we can analyze this and take our time to make sure that we're not rushing through it, that we take a look at each one of these, because it all works together. And again, I very, very discouraged when I had to put this on, and I know Mr. Gignac, who was also a graduate of Lowell High School, was a little surprised too. But I think that working together, collaboratively and cooperatively, hopefully we can turn these numbers around. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
Mr. Conway kind of just basically said what I was going to say, but just to highlight upon a point, I think it's important. It's important, I support the motion because obvious there's a concern, but the key is, why did the numbers jump in 1 year? That doesn't make any sense on face value. It's either a different way. I think we know there's probably a different way we're counting folks, a different strategy that we're using that changed the numbers double. And I think that's more important first to get the results of what happened before you rush in and make programs. So you can ensure that your programs are going to be effective. And then we as a committee, if there's a policy that needs to be changed or set, we can sit down and do that. I think, unfortunately, Mr. Conway had to put this motion forward because we found out from the Department of Ed. And I think, Madam Superintendent, that's the way this information was presented. I think that's almost as of concern as doubling the number, that you find out not from your people who live it, but you find out from a different place. So the motion's a good motion, but what's more important is let's find out why so we take the right strategies. We don't need to meet 5,000 times to do that, but we do need the information before it's released, because they know that information, and we can be helpful. If there's a different way of counting, then we need to know that so we can prepare different types of strategies to improve the number. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a motion by James Leary. Requests the superintendent to evaluate the current K through 12 grade physical education curriculum and provide recommendations to the school committee for proposed changes, which would include aligning the K through 12 grade physical education curriculum, improving the existing programs, meeting the students' physical education needs, and providing updated staffing and facility recommendations to support proposed changes. Seconded by Mr. Gignac. Mr. Leary.
Thank you. Just quickly, it's a wordy motion, but I think it's important because we put a lot of dollar value into highly skilled individuals who are physical education instructors. To get the physical education degree is one of the most challenging degrees one can obtain, I think, next to science or mathematics, in a university or college setting. And I think, we need to ensure that we have a high quality of education, K through 12, and that it's aligned and that it adds value. We're focused, and rightfully so, on the academics, as we should be, but if we're mandated by law to have a physical education program, let's ensure that it adds value not only to the current life of an individual, but to the when they do leave us. And I guess that it's holistic. So it's a motion I wanted to put on for a long time, and I gladly look for any help or assistance from our skilled individuals who are in the trenches doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a motion by Kim Scott and James Leary. Request the superintendent to review and make recommendation changes to improve the academy programs at Lowell High School. The recommendations would include development of a rigorous STEM academic program through the existing Lowell High School infrastructure, flexible scheduling, more proportionate class sizes, ensuring student achievement, and developing pathways to increase the number of students in engineering and science programs as required by the Race to the Top and Mass Core. Not requiring a second, Ms. Scott or Mr. Leary?
Just quickly, the motion, it's a good time to look at our academies. We've had them in place. They're effective in terms of the small learning communities within our high school. But like everything else, it needs to have a good review and have strong recommendations from from central administration and from the high school administration. Things change fast, they change rapidly. We need to get this information, unfortunately, by budget time so we can make any types of staffing recommendations or changes. I think it's aligned with what is happening in terms of where we need to go. And I think we have the right people in place. Our department chairs, I think, are second to none anywhere in the Commonwealth. So we've got good people who can give us advice and work with you, Madam Superintendent, and your staff in terms of putting a good recommendation forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. I certainly will support the motion. I think I agree with my colleague that it is a good time for us to be looking at the academies at the high school and kind of making some, taking stock of what we have and where we want to go. It is a small point, but maybe not so small. I appreciate the STEM movement and the emphasis on it. I would like to say in our district, I would love to see us looking more at the STEAM model that includes the arts, as part of it, the connections between particularly arts and mathematics and really all of the other disciplines. I know it's a newer acronym, but it is something that, as we look at this, it broadens the impact of STEM. I mean, just simply making sure that the arts are part of that initiative, I think offers it, again, a much more broad foundation to grow from. So that's just my 2 cents.
Sure. Mr. Gignac and then Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate this motion, and unfortunately, the academies at the high school over the past few years have been shrinking, and this is a good time that we can look at them and make the changes that we need to. So thank you, Mr. Leary and Ms. Scott, for this motion.
Mr. Leary?
Just quickly, I agree with my Committeewoman Martin. I think it's recommendations, and I think adding that is a good thing. And I'd be welcome to see, positive change, the changes that need to be made and recommendations that need to be made that will help, enrich our students' experience at the high school. Thank you.
Anyone else on the motion? So we'll add an A then to the... All those in favor of the motion as amended? Any opposed? In favor? So voted. The next motion is by Mr. Robert Gignac and Mr. James Leary to request the superintendent investigate the possibility of developing a STEM science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and possibly arts concentrated program through the Lowell Public School System. The investigation should result in a full report to the committee. The report should include the possibility of such a program with recommendations to proceed. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's actually a great idea that Ms. Martin had brought up, so if we could amend this motion to say STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. These fields are not going anywhere. They're constantly growing. Universities are exploding with these types of fields, and it's good to bring these concentrations at the lower levels, so once they get up to the high school, they're prepared and they're excited to get hands-on, and then once they leave the high school, they're better prepared to succeed. Thank you, Mr. Leary, for putting on this motion with me. And thank you, Ms. Martin, for the suggestion.
All those in favor of the motion as amended signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Moving on, we have the subcommittees portion of the agenda. The Joint Facilities Subcommittee with the City Council, approval of the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, February 15th, 2012. Motion to approve by Ms. Rosikowicz, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have the Joint Technology and Finance Subcommittee, a report and approval of the minutes of the meeting of Thursday, February 23rd, 2012. Ms. Scott. Or Mr. Leary, whichever.
I'll just start, but first I want to thank Mrs. Scott's first chairing of a subcommittee. She did an excellent job, so I just want to say that first. And everybody in the committee was in attendance. The administration was in attendance. It's a lot of information that we received. I can't count how many papers and trees that are injured because of the comprehensive report. We thank Mr. Lang and his staff for putting a shorter, kind of a condensed version of what we're starting to look at. There's 3 issues here that we discussed in terms of actually employees that are under new business. As we get into this report, I think we should probably do it now. In terms of the entire report, but it's something that's long overdue. The initial voyage of this Finance and Technology Subcommittee. So once we go over some of these 3 positions that Mr. Lang provided for us, we can get into some dialogue, I guess, per position and get and hear from other members in terms of their concerns and what they envision we start to do with technology. With that, I'm going to let Ms. Scott really kind of go over the nuts and bolts of what the meeting actually attended, but attempted to begin to start, but just by saying one thing, this is a beginning step of a journey that we've been absent because of funding for some time. So there's some frustration, I know among committee members, I know about parents out there, and I think now we're beginning to attack that a problem. And I can assure folks that this is now a top priority because of the funding coming in, but also we acknowledge that going forward, even if funding is challenged, this is an area we still have to make a top priority because it's just too important. I guess turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Scott, for the nuts and bolts.
Thank you for your excellent co-chairing of that subcommittee. Ms. Scott.
Okay. Gonna make me talk, aren't you? I have no voice. The agenda item for the evening was the cell technology review, and we came out with about 6 recommendations from the meeting. Our first recommendation, consensus, was to establish and advertise and post the position of Information, Communication, and Technology Director. Our second item was to fully implement a help desk to coordinate the calls and tickets submitted for technical support. And third recommendation was to develop and sustain dynamic district, school, and teacher websites, and to provide a full-time webmaster to coordinate the important communication tool to improve community, parent, and student outreach efforts. I'm not reading it all, that's okay, right? It's a little too long to read tonight for me. The fourth item is to pilot a bring your own technology program for staff to enable teachers and administrators to access district resources through the use of their own technology. Our fifth item is to conduct focus groups of Lowell Public Schools staff to determine minimum and optimal classroom technology configurations. The work will need to be prioritized and coordinated over the next 30 to 60 days to allow for a recommendation for the FY13 budget deliberations. And our sixth recommendation was to allocate funding to implement several tablet pilot programs at elementary, middle and high school levels this spring. And then we had a vote 2-0 to take that as a report of progress.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mr. Leary?
I think part of the work, it's kind of a work in progress in addition to making certain action steps tonight. The biggest focus right now is for the administration to come back with a plan in terms of how our budget's going to look like for the upcoming year. We targeted 30 to 60 days in order to say what type of configuration we're going to try to look to implement and over how many years. The flip side of that is also develop and writing an actual technology plan before the end of the budget session in terms of what our actions are going to be over the next 5 years. What part of the lengthy part of the subcommittee meeting was going over CELT's recommendations in terms of what we should be prioritizing first, taking care of issues that need to be taken care of. For example, the website, which is immediate, almost we should do it today, all the way up to what should a classroom look like in the next 3 to 5 years, and what type of financial supports would go into the classroom. So what we instructed and requested, it was in the form of a motion, but an acknowledgement that the administration would put dollar values to specific items that we're going to go forward with. So that's something that will be coming in the next meeting, probably in the April meeting, as we start to look at our budget, putting together what are we going to be spending this year in this year's budget, and what is our plan for the following years. One thing to say that I think what we've done as a committee over the past few years working with the administration is we've have close to like $3 million in terms of funds that we've set aside that we haven't just budgeted yet for technology because we're waiting for the plan to come out. But that's an area where we're going to be putting the $3 million into technology in terms of buying the products that we need to have for our classroom, for our teachers. The problem is that $3 million is not sufficient enough. I think the recommendations, if you looked at the plan from 1 to 5 years, was in the excess of $20 to $21 million or even higher. So we need to be, and I'll let Mr. Lane comment on that further, but I think what we're doing now is looking at different options. Ms. Scott was talking about leasing versus procuring. What are other avenues that we can have that would have a positive advantage? What type of intelligent plan can we go forward, working with the city in terms of how do we start looking for assistance from them to actually implement a lot of these technology items. So it was a very comprehensive meeting, and I think I began by saying it's a lot of information at one time to digest. And we need to start looking at it in terms of outlining it over 1 to 5 years, working together in terms of what's the priorities, listening to our teachers in the classroom, as well as our administrators in terms of what is needed immediately. I think 2 things that came out again is we need someone who can actually lead this. We can't have our current administration doing it. It doesn't work that way. No company that's worth their salt or a school system worth their salt does not have a director of technology. That's one area we have to discuss tonight. And the second issue is we need the website updated now. So, we need it very soon. So we need to, some of the recommendations tonight are in regards to that. I know everybody wants to have a chance to take a speak on it because it is very important, but I want to make sure we get those items out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Mr. Conway, and then Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was an excellent meeting, and obviously, as my colleague, Mr. Leary, said, it was very comprehensive, a lot of information to try to digest. Where Mr. Leary mentions the website, that absolutely is paramount. It should be up and running. It should be something that we should be proud of, that is an informational tool for parents and for the community, and that's got to be addressed right away. I think what Mr. Leary said, too, was extremely important, too, and that is, what does the classroom look like down the road? And that's something that we have to focus on. What does the classroom look like down the road as far as technology is concerned? And one of my concerns that I did have is with the focus group, that if I recall, out of a group of 12, I think there were only 2 teachers that were on that focus group. I'm sure that there's some very highly qualified individuals giving input, but I think that what needs to take place is we need to have a greater say from the teachers. What do they need in that classroom? Too often what we have seen in the past, if we go back, materials, books, and so forth have been ordered, and teachers have looked at them and said, why did we get this? Who ordered this? Obviously, someone that doesn't understand the classroom, doesn't understand our needs, does not ask the teachers what would be the most effective way to handle technology. When we took a look at the bottom line figure, and I think it was somewhere in the 20-some-odd million dollars that it would take to outfit our system with technology in the proper end. Obviously, we don't have that kind of money. And I think that's why we have to spend that money as wisely as possible. We need to have individuals that can help us pare it down and say, okay, what is important? What do we need? Do we need computers for everyone in the classroom? Do we need perhaps working in groups that we can cut down the numbers? I think we also have to realize that technology is extremely important, and it changes. It's evolving on a constant basis. But I also, you can't take technology and substitute technology for the teacher. The technology should be a supplement to the curriculum, to the materials that are in that classroom. It's a help. It's another help that the teacher can have. So I think that's my concern too, is going out and spending this money wisely. Back a number of years ago, technology was the thing. 15 years ago, what happened? We ended up with laptops with all the teachers at the high school. There was no plan to go forward with that. And what happened to the laptops? Eventually, they fell by the wayside. So I want to make sure that when we do have this plan going forward, that we're spending this money as wisely as possible, because we don't have an abundance of money to throw at it. We obviously need to address technology because it's something that has been neglected for a number of years. And again, I would caution the individuals that are making the decisions, that we do bring the people that are actually doing the work in the classroom, bring them forward, seek their advice. It's extremely important. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Ms. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there was certainly a great deal that was discussed at this meeting, and I was disappointed to have to miss it, but getting the minutes really showed what was covered. Just a few quick things. I think the focus, as we've talked about, the staff decisions that were made during this meeting, you know, we're looking at a technology director, we're looking at a help desk person, and we're looking at basically a web designer and someone who can design our web presence and maintain it. They're three critical functions, and I think there's nothing else that follows in this technology plan that we can even begin to touch unless we have that expertise as part of our district. So I think that, you know, we've certainly gone through this process. I'll speak for myself, it took longer than I had expected, but certainly in looking at the results, they are extremely well defined and delineated for us, and there's real value in what this audit has done for us. So now, of course, it comes to us to implement what we will. I absolutely, as I say, support these three positions. I know we'll be voting on them shortly, but I think they're absolutely they're critical to us if we're going to be able to make any kind of headway. Just some concerns. Looking at the minutes, it's the Bring Your Own pilot program. I know I've expressed before my concerns in terms of students. Am I right in understanding that we're looking at focusing on staff now, that the pilot would only be offered to staff who wanted to use their own technology in the classroom? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
I appreciate that. That alleviates a huge worry that I had.
We thought that was a starting place as a pilot to.
I think that makes
to the
perfect
staff.
sense. Beautiful. My other question would be, or I guess statement, looking at the number 6 item that was discussed, we had discussed this, I think, really in our most preliminary conversations. I remember when I was talking with principals, you know, before our budget last year, the idea of being able to set up this kind of mini grant program where teachers themselves would be able to kind of put themselves on the front line, say, this is my idea, this is how I want to see technology used in the classroom, come up with a well-crafted, standards-based, something that has, again, all of our benchmarks and all of our, you know, kind of backwards design in our curriculum, and that the onus is on our teachers, which is where we can draw the most expertise in how to use technology in the classroom. We have a whole host of teachers who are literally, I mean, they're ready to go. They've been held back by our lack of investment. Now's the opportunity for them to kind of be on the vanguard and take it upon themselves to come up with a plan, and then we can support that plan. I think that would be, seeing this in the minutes, I was really extremely pleased, because I do think that that's the most effective way for us to get the technology out kind of in a broad way, but in an effective way, and then we can hopefully hit the tipping point sooner rather than later, when we have real success that we can point to, and we have teachers who are enthusiastic and excited about using the technology and can work with their colleagues and their peers to incorporate it more and more, and really inculcate it more and more into our overall offerings here in the district. So I think the subcommittee did extraordinarily good work. I know the administration and Deputy Superintendent Lang were extremely involved in working with CELT, and I think they did a really good job for our district. It was worth the investment, not only of time and resources, to get this kind of comprehensive review to really inform our decisions moving forward. So I applaud all your efforts, especially Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Mr. Conway?
Just a quick question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent. I noticed that on the job descriptions it has non-affiliated. Could you tell me what exactly what that means, and what the advantage is or disadvantage of non-affiliated?
Yes, the non-affiliated position have been some of the new positions that we've done in the past couple of years. When we reconstituted the Parent Information Center to the Family Resource Center, Mr. Dakota became non-affiliated. It opens up, and it was a recommendation of CELT when they did the study, that the non-affiliated full-year position opens the opportunity for other people to apply for the position that would be highly qualified. And so it was the recommendation of CELT themselves that had said a non-affiliate, and it could be people who have experience in teaching, have experience in administration, but the non-affiliated position would open the channels to people who have had experience in a variety of background. That was the recommendation of the committee.
And that experience being in what area you're talking about?
Education technology in the field. And the fact that these need to be full-year positions, the director being a full-year position, that was part of it. So these non-affiliates, I think we have about 3 of them in administration. The director of human resources is non-affiliated, the director of the Family Resource Center, and then this being the newest one because it opens up the application pool to a different level. That was a recommendation, so we went with it.
The thing that I'm a little concerned about, I'm not quite understanding this, is that the technology, aren't we trying to, as Mr. Leary just said, mentioned, what is the classroom going to look like down the road? 5 years, or what's it going to look like? So, I mean, I would think that if we're trying to find out what that classroom looks like, wouldn't we have to have somebody with experience, I would think, in education? I mean, obviously technology, but I would think it would have to be education too. I mean, because once again, what I don't want to see happen, that's happened in the past numerous times, where all of a sudden someone comes in and decides they want to retool something and they don't fully understand what is needed in that classroom. That's my only concern here, all the way down the line. Thank you.
Ms. Roth-Sikowicz and then Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, what I see in this, with regard to the director that we're going to entertain, the focus groups would have established what those needs are in the classroom, particularly if we incorporate more teachers into those focus groups, because really they're going to be the driving force towards the implementation of all of these strategies. In addition, I really like the idea of the mini grants. It's a great opportunity for teachers to apply for small or short money to innovate and provide an opportunity for us to duplicate those innovations across the district. And I also see this as an investment, really, in our future, because we really certainly can use the funds that we're seeding this program with at this point in time as leverage towards future grant opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary or Mr. Lang?
Can I go? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Lang.
Thank you. You said me, right? Me? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. A couple just quick responses for you. Part of the rationale also for having it be a non-affiliated position is the fact that these positions really need to be year-round. The technology in the district, a lot of obviously our Unit A teaching positions are 180 days. Our LSAA positions in the district generally are school year, or they're 2 weeks before or a week after, things like that. These positions, because they are gonna touch on district technology, really need to be more of a year-round position. So that's the impetus for them being non-affiliated. At some point in time, one of the unions could come and say, we think this position would align with our union. You'd need to negotiate it at that point in time. But I think given the unique skills that was going to be required in this individual, to keep it as broad as possible when we put the job description together, and again, a lot of the recommendations came from them. When the CELT group took a look at our existing job descriptions in the district, they felt they were too limiting with regard to who could actually fulfill those jobs. You certainly want people with some minimum education criteria as far as degrees, whether it be associates or bachelor's or master's, but they felt a lot of our different job descriptions were just too restrictive as far as, say, say, different certifications that were required, both on some of the highly specialized tech staff who maybe went to a training program to get Microsoft certified in a particular skill, but didn't necessarily have a bachelor's degree. And you wouldn't necessarily need that if you had the training offsite in a particular area. And the same thing comes into play. This Director of Information Technology will be our leader in the district for this technology piece. They're going to have an understanding and a background in education to really make this work. But again, when you get into even the education realm, you can just over-certify a position. So you can make it so restrictive as to, what level of certification, again, because this is a district-wide position for K-12. You can have candidates applying that maybe have a really strong middle and high school background or really strong elementary and middle background, and if you become too restrictive on the certifications, you end up really factoring out a substantial number of applicants. So to make it as inclusive as possible, these were their recommendations, and I think we really do need them to be year-round positions, and that was the rationale for the non-affiliated.
Thank you. Mr. Leary, then Mr. Gignac, then Mr. Conway.
Wow, good order. I guess just a quick question on the district webmaster position. Part of the dialogue we had was about outsourcing the web portion of that function. Do we need this position? Is it something that we could be outsourcing it, or some of our internal folks could look at? I mean, why are we filling this, or why are we posting this position now, I guess?
I think the webmaster position is really, all three of these are kind of, I view as the minimum kind of critical positions to be bringing on board. Part of the issue with our website, both at the district, school, and teacher level, which is really non-existent, is because we don't have a dedicated body in the district really driving that. Good intentions go into play and people will post a website, but it's very difficult to keep it updated. And if the information isn't valid and consumers are going in to look at the information and they're seeing a year-old calendar or different things like that, they just lose faith in the overall website. So I think the webmaster, and we've interviewed a few different products already to go to like a hosted environment for our website, but you're still going to need that Lowell Public School body who's really driving the websites. We'll definitely be moving towards more of a template type product. This won't be someone who's sitting behind the scenes kind of developing all the different looks and feels, because all the different packages we're looking into, part of really the appeal to them is that you can have that across the board look for the Lowell Public Schools, so that when you come to the main district website and you click off to go to an elementary school, certainly you can have individual school colors and you can have the logos, but if we have a particular look and feel, the Bailey's going to look the same as the Lincoln and the Maury, and that's really nice. But this person, once they get the nuts and bolts of the system going, can also go out into the schools and help train, say, the teachers or whoever the building level coaches end up being. This is very basic. We want to get this person on board first, but I see us actually through the budget process probably identifying one or two stipended type positions in each building to kind of have a building webmaster. It'd be a few $1,000s per building, but that person would be responsible for really keeping the day-to-day content of that particular site up, working with individual teachers around the different aspects of the tools. And one of the two of the different products we've looked at really almost offer an expanded intranet type functionality to their website, where teachers can be posting common lesson plans to share with each other. And as a district, if we have this individual really coordinating it, and it links to our student information system X2, then we can actually coordinate, say, all of our third grade elementary teachers to be able to be pooling towards specific sites and sharing lesson plans and building that solid intranet of communication among staff. But we really do need a dedicated body running it, because right now we don't have that, and I think things just slip to the background. Again, no ill intention, but this will be kind of a driving force to keep us going in the same direction on this.
Well, just one follow-up and one quick question. Just the follow-up is to make sure it's interactive for the teachers to be able to update their grades. So if you're in first grade in Mr. Leary's class, here's what we're going to be covering for the year, and they have the ability to make changes, within guidelines, obviously, that we're going to have to set. But we have an interactive for the practitioners.
Correct.
Can do it. Okay, cool. So that's good. The only other thing I have is a comment on the department director of information. Is that salary, and the $95,000? It's a lot of money, obviously, but is it sufficient? Do we need? I mean, I don't want to go back on your phrase. We want to make sure we get the right candidates. Is that an appropriate market price for that type of position? Thank you.
This again, we relied on CEL to help us with the initial salary range. We did do a range. We didn't specify a particular dollar amount. We also left the work year. We don't usually do this, but we left that to be a range also. So the work year would incorporate anywhere from, say, 2 to 4 weeks of vacation time. That can also come into play with the salary, depending on where the individual is coming from. If, you might be able to get a more attractive salary if you offer a little more vacation time. The money might be more important than the vacation time, but you can at least have that conversation with candidates. And they felt that given, they looked at our LSAA salaries, they looked at our teacher salaries, they looked at our principal and administrator salaries, and they felt this was a good range to get started for our district. And again, they reiterate, and I think just by being in business, this, the tech field can demand some crazy salaries. And we've got to try to have something somewhat in line with our organizational salary structure and work years and whatnot. They felt this was a good start. I could come back to you in a month after we go through this and say, you know what, we've got 2 applicants, and this just isn't working for all these reasons. And it is not affiliated, so you have the ability to go and change something. And even once the deal is kind of done and you look at your applicants, we have some flexibility, again, where it's not affiliated, where I can come back to you and say, we really think we need to reduce this, we need to increase something else. But they thought it was a very good start, and I also do think, just given our existing salaries in the district, it's a reasonable start.
Thank you. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Lang, through you to Mr. Lang. These mini grant to allow, the teachers to purchase, say, 10 tablets for their classroom, or however many they're asking for. Is that something you would like to wait until we have these positions filled, or is that something you wanted to jump on this school year?
That would be something both, I think, the SELT folks as well as I would recommend we actually pilot this spring as we're doing the interviews, bringing other people on board, to just not have there be too significant a delay and really be able to get some of this technology out. What I envision, conceptually, that was something we spoke about. There was no firm action as far as setting a dollar amount to whatnot. What I'd envision is coming back to you probably at the next meeting or the first meeting in April with kind of a markup of what a mini grant application might be, some specific recommendations about maybe having so many at different levels to try to get some information out there. But ideally, if we could actually pilot some programs between, say, April school vacation week at the end of the school year, to at least start getting some newer technology out there, and get a feel also, if it comes to May or June and we're making some bigger decisions on bigger dollar items, we'll have a feel for potentially what really worked well for us, what we might want to really look at investment-wise. And if we just absolutely try to pilot and it didn't work for whatever reason, the technology that was purchased didn't work, at least it was purchased on a very small scale, and we know we wouldn't want to scale that. I think the other issue is, even just around kind of staff morale and buy-in. For a year now, the staff have been going through this program with us, and we've had a lot of staff that have participated in the individual focus groups, and we'll have a lot more staff that participate in the classroom design work, and they're really eager to try to start using some of the technology. And I think in the scheme of the budget we'd be allocating towards the technology, this wouldn't be a huge amount of money to make an initial investment to really keep that interest going and be able to actually let some technology ideas foster this springtime.
Thank you. I would caution maybe rolling this out to the full extent before hiring these 3 positions, mainly the director, because we need someone in a position to monitor the use of these devices, to make sure that they're using them properly and what's working, what's not working. Unfortunately, at this time, I'm not aware of anyone that would be able to do such a thing. I don't think that's something that we can throw on your shoulders. But that's, this scenario here with 300 tablets, that's a good test. However, that's a lot of tablets for no one to be monitoring besides the classroom teacher and the current IT staff that we have. This is, you gave me an iPad last week that I couldn't get working. So never mind 300 of them. So this is something I would caution rolling out fully without having a director on staff to really to put in their input to see how things should be done in this instance, because $75,000 might seem like a small dollar amount in this district. However, that's a big chunk of change, especially where we stand financially. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac. Mr. Conway?
Yeah, just very quickly, just to follow up what Mr. Gignac said. Now, those devices, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent, Mr. Lang, these devices, the pilot program, are we talking about how many of these devices per classroom?
Well, that's what we don't know yet at this point. The concept of the mini grant would be to earmark a certain amount of money. And again, I threw out 75,000, but I mean, that's negotiable and we can certainly discuss that. What we'd be doing is trying to actually get the teacher buy-in. So the teachers would be submitting an application. One teacher might say, I'd like to do this particular project. It's a special ed class, and I've got, at most, I've got 5 or 6 students in here at a time. Another teacher may say, I want to do this, and I'm going to do it. I need 10 devices because I've got 3 groups of 10 kids that are going to flow through it. The uniqueness of the mini grant is you really wouldn't know exactly how many devices are going into each school or classroom until you evaluated the mini grant. It wouldn't be this wouldn't be a district-wide initiative. It'd be based just on individual feedback.
So, I mean, do you envision having one of these devices for each student in a classroom? Is that what you?
That wouldn't be the goal of the mini grant
Okay.
program, no.
All right. Okay. And the other point, I just very quickly, I want to thank you for clearing up that situation as far as the job description, because again. Technology obviously is extremely important, and we have to do our funding for it. But also, I think the whole idea of that educational component, which you said was extremely important too, which I'm glad to hear, because that's what I was getting a little nervous about, because all of a sudden it's like, is this all just going to be individuals just dealing specifically with technology? And I'm saying, do they have a concept? Do they have an idea of what goes on in the classroom? And you clarified it, I think, by saying that obviously the individuals will have knowledge and understanding of what goes on in that classroom too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cotton and then Ms. Martin.
Through you to Mr. Lang, please. The only question I have, similar to Mr. Leary's question, is on the timing of the posting, not on the webmaster, but on the help desk coordinator. Mm-hmm. We did have a discussion during the subcommittee meeting about leasing equipment. Mm-hmm. And as far as I know, there were some districts that had said that there was help desk coordination as part of their lease agreement. So I was just curious about the timing of the posting on this.
On that particular item, and I actually have talked to two vendors that do a lot of the leasing, so that will be incorporated into the final plan. The help desk, from what I've seen, the help desk coordinator position isn't contracted out to a vendor, because you actually really need to have the person who's going to be locally responsible have ownership to the district, and not to have any conflict of interest, because they're going to be coordinating, say, tickets and calls and responses. You'd want to have them have your best interest in mind as opposed to the vendor. What gets contracted out is a lot of the break fix repair. So if we were to lease a certain number of computers, you would probably contract to have a company come in and provide the service if something breaks, because we don't have staff on hand who could maintain a larger number of computers than we already have. But that central person to actually coordinate the teacher feedback or the concerns or the breaks would be a district resource, reporting to the computer folks and the ITCS director. If that person did work for the vendor, there'd be a conflict with them either under-reporting or over-reporting breaks and fixes and fees. So you'd really want to have that separation.
And as far as waiting to post it until the IT director was hired so that they could have say in the position, I mean, I'm saying, is it needed right now, as it is right now in the district?
Yeah, I think all these are, quite honestly. I'm not opposed to realistically, as we go through the process for the overarching director, if the position posts next week, it closes sometime in early April, by the time you do your interviews and actually have an offer on the table, the person's probably going to be starting closer to July 1st by the time they give notice and come on board so that they can be here for the summer. I'd love to have them sooner, but again, it's going to just give and take based on what position the person's coming from. I don't think it hurts to go through the process, and again, we could even delay the posting opening on the, say, the webmaster and the other one, till at least we got a sense of who that director might be. Even if that director were working somewhere else in a different capacity, there's no reason they couldn't be involved in interviews for those positions, to still at least have some say in the interviewing, but it wouldn't stall the whole process, so that hopefully that whole team could come on board about the same time. So I could internally do that, even just delay some of the interviewing until we had a better sense of the director.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. Just two quick comments. One, I would like to say, as we look at the pilot program, I think it's ambitious to try and get something in place. I think what would make me more comfortable with that would be ensuring that basically this mini grant program is being, or the decision-making process is being crafted and implemented by the curriculum office. Sorry about that. But I think that needs to be the key thing, and I think that belies the truth of all this, that, you know, we're driven by curriculum, we're driven by instruction. Technology is a tool in the toolbox, but it's not what leads the charge. So I think that, you know, I would be much more comfortable that if we do move forward with the pilot program, you know, in short order, that so long as it's being kind of vetted by the curriculum office and the staff there, I think then we might be able to see some teachers, again, who are just ready to go and have been waiting for it to hit, and that would be able to really very quickly articulate how they want to use it, why they want to use it, what it's going to be tied to. I think that would make a huge difference in kind of the confidence level moving forward. I also would say I absolutely agree with my colleague, Ms. Scott, that the idea of bringing on our information technology director and giving that person it's an opportunity to build their team, I think that makes perfect sense. It's going to be, even looking at an investment of 3 positions, that's still pretty thin for a district our size, and it's going to be critically important that we have complementary skill sets so that all 3 of these positions can work together seamlessly, and I think that we can't just kind of throw 3 random people together and expect them to work as a team. I think bringing in that leadership first so that that person can inform the process would lead to a much more effective end result. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the superintendent or deputy superintendent. I was just curious as to where our current IT staff fall into this situation. Are they going to be a part of this department? Are they going to be working?
The current IT staff and all the support staff in the district would be rolling up under this new ITCS department. There'll be a merger. And there are other components that will actually get rolled out during the budget process. As you indicated, Ms. Martin, there are 3 positions right now in the scheme of things are actually quite small compared to the recommendations in the report. But they're a good segue into addressing some of the issues that we have. And at the same time, during the budget process, though, when we have a bit larger context of the overall budget, there was certainly some recommendation for more mid-level educational folks to be working with teachers to actually integrate this technology, whether it be positions that might share multiple schools and multiple levels. We'll be looking at some of the ITS positions that we already have in schools, how they're being utilized. So there will be, these are kind of 3 right now type positions, but during the budget process, in the larger context, there'll be some recommendations for additional staff, utilizing existing staff differently, and also, possibly adding some new staff to the mix as well.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the report? Ms. Martin?
If I could, Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we take out of order the 3 job postings that are listed later in our agenda and move them forward into the subcommittee report so the committee can vote on them.
Sure.
At this point. And I'd make a motion to approve those 3 job postings.
Okay, motion to take out of order by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Motion to accept items 19, 20, and 21 under new business, items 20, 21, and 22 under new business. Permission to post Director of Information, Communication, and Technology Services. Permission to post the Help Desk Coordinator, as well as permission to post District Webmaster. Mr. Leary.
The maker of the motion, I guess, I don't have a problem posting it, but we need to do it in the right order in terms of how we're selecting it. So I'll second the motion, but I just want to make sure we're hiring the Department of Information Communication first, so that individual can be part of any interviews as we go forward. So I don't know how you stagger it, if we can put in the language staggering these positions, because the director is the one who's going to have to be part of that process of hiring these individuals. So I don't know, Ms. Martin, if you could.
I'd accept that as a friendly amendment.
Mr. Lane?
No, I was going to say, I got that as the intent of the discussion. I think obviously we'll go with the timeline that we have already advertised in the job description for the ITCS director. But I'll just back out the dates on the closings of the other positions. And even if, they won't be open for too long, but we'll just wait for the interviews until we get the ITCS director on board. But we can start the advertising and recruiting phase. But I got the intent was to hire the director first and have that person be involved in the other interviewing.
Any discussion, further discussion on the motion as amended to accept these three positions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Rostikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Still on the floor, we would need a motion to accept the minutes in a report as a report of progress for the Joint Technology and Finance Subcommittee. Motion by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Rostikowicz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have, under the reports of the superintendent, first we have a report on the Knowledge Bowl of 2012. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first report this evening is a synopsis of the annual Knowledge Bowl. As a matter of fact, I know that members of this committee have already served as judges in the first preliminary week. And so the Knowledge Bowl has been going on for I think, at least more than 10 years. I'm not exactly sure, 20 years perhaps, and it had a kind of a layoff and then came back because of funding. And so it's something that's part of our culture here in the city. And so all are welcome to any of the matches. The elimination round is next week. There'll be semifinals, and the final competition is on March 22nd. So if you haven't had a chance to go, please stop by. It's a fun evening, and it features our children and how very smart they are.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Rostikowicz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have item 13, the entry plan findings and recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the report that I provided this evening is a summary of the work I've been doing as new superintendent in the Lowell Public Schools and getting to become familiar with many constituents and, of course, all of my committee members and others. And so the purpose of this particular plan was to get a picture of the Lowell Public Schools, a deep view of many of the components and what it takes to know the district explicitly. As you know, I've been in the district for over 16 years, and so I have great knowledge and depth in many areas, but this is being visualized and actually experiencing the role of superintendent. And so to meet the goals of the system, which are communication, oversight, and shared leadership, and response to instruction, which is targeted instruction for every child at each level, making sure that we're stretching our children to the maximum. And then looking specifically at the needs of special education students, I had many conversations to get input, because when you unpack goals, you want to make sure that you know what your city thinks and believes as far as the future of your district. So I'll just tell you that the objectives were to expand my knowledge, to make sure that I was making relationships, building relationships as a new superintendent in this district, that I could identify the major district issues to help with the strategic planning across the board, to enhance efficiency, effectiveness, collaboration, and also determine key issues in building central office on the level of the school committee and on the level of the delegation. I've spoken with many people from many different businesses, very welcoming to me, and to really talk about people's thoughts and future expectations of what they hope for the public schools. So that's all part of it. So as you can see by this particular report, it talks about how I started off with individual interviews of all the former school committee members, speaking to the Lowell delegation, of course my own team, which we met consistently this year, all the central office support teams, central office, school-wide members, all kinds of different people that are stated here. Community agencies, I've met with YMCA, the Middlesex Community College people, University of Massachusetts, people from the Rotary Club Fire, police superintendent, as far as my union colleagues at both the LSAA and the UTL, UTEC, many different organizations, and at WCAP, and meeting with both the Lowell Sun president and the chairman of the board. And so at schools, I have been to every school for a specific after-school schoolhouse meeting with staff to just talk about things like the goals of the district, the vision of the district, and what communication strategies we can meet. In those meetings after school, UTL President Paul Georges accompanied me so we could give a clear message about the explicit need for collaboration to continue. This work is all of our work, and our belief systems are so incredibly important. The initial work we've seen at one school, our level 4 school, Merklin, is that deep collaboration and trust, leaders, practitioners, parents, students. And so how that trust is extremely important, and in the most highly performing schools, that's what it takes. Communication, trust, and belief in each other. And so I've had visits to all kinds of places, and you can see all that in the report, but I asked a number of questions, but I did unpack key questions. And this committee is pretty well informed about all things Lowell and the history, so you're not going to be surprised by a lot of the outcomes, but it does strengthen the work we've done. So the first question that I really unpacked was, what are the 3 most impressive strengths? And so in meeting with the former committee and the new committee and others, this is what we came as far as the strengths of the district. So the X's kind of talk about the common threads. What I heard again and again, contingent upon the many conversations and discussions I had over time. So some of the strengths that came out were that it's a nice place to work and to go to school. And we had that across the board, that we had lots of positive comments about the school system in general. But also, people had some work about strengths with the curriculum and the intervention, but then the welcoming, the quality. We got lots of wonderful comments about staff, even children, young people, because I do meet with young people in my visits around town every time I go to a middle school or high school. And they talked about how they loved their teachers and they like their schools. And so talking about leadership and student needs. One strength that came out almost immediately, and this is why I love working here, is that this is a city that appreciates this diversity. So everybody talked about the fact that we have student diversity as a strength of this district. We saw our strength as partnerships, and everybody loves the fact that we offer the extra programming, sports, intramural clubs, music, anything, and beyond people appreciated that the middle school children said, we love the sports, can you do more? So those are the identified strengths that we had in this particular, all of these meetings. This is what came out as a common thread. We have challenges in communication, and we have challenges in public relations. Many people talked about the fact you have some great things going on, but we don't always capitalize upon that. And so that was something that I think that rings true. We've talked about that ourselves. Technology, resounding conversations about technology. Almost every single one of the after-school meetings talked about technology, keeping that in the core of our instruction and how important it was, as well as parents talked about technology so that we know that, and we're on that. But unwrapping this plan and making it really public will be very important as we go. And so as we go through, we had the safety piece. People were, in many cases in the conversations, were thinking that there are challenges with safety, depending on the different scenario, depending on different opportunities or particular scenarios. It's interesting for people who said it's a safe place, great place to work, then also it came out that sometimes there are challenges in that area. As I look towards the important changes in the next 3 years, expansion of art, sports, music, that whole area was something that came from everybody I spoke to. There was some concern expressed about class size. As you know, over time, our class sizes, especially at Lowell High School and in the middle school with the addition of the extra 7th and 8th graders, has been something that's been challenging. And that whole loss of paraprofessionals, when we talk about the 500 staff people, we have lost from every level of our organization, and there have been tough calls all the way through the whole budget cutting piece. But I think that what came true and was spoken about quite a bit in schools was how we had many paraprofessionals in K, 1, 2, all the way through the years, and how that has impacted the amount of support that teachers get, and especially our young people. So those are part of the pieces that I saw in talking to many of our community members and staff. We had great discussion about early childhood expansion, that every child deserves an early childhood experience, not only in the Lowell Public Schools, but within our city. And our city does the best job it possibly can, but we know that we have been really challenged with transportation for our young people, for making sure people have access. And a lot of the work is even talking about not just the 4-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, and how we can start looking at that. So that came up quite a bit in conversation. When we talked about improving communication, resoundingly, the website, the technology, access to data, the way we use educational data, although we've been working on data for a long period of time, the automaticity in schools, that's something came out with teachers. Although we have lots of data, we need to have quicker access in some cases. And so, to improve communication, there was some recommendations that were made for more collaboration with specialized teachers. And in essence, teachers from the special education department, there was some specialized teachers, speech and language teachers, wanted to have more collaboration. And to improve communication with partnerships, community agencies. So these are some of the things that came out quite regularly. So when I think about the summary of all that I've heard and all that I've seen in the district, I would like to just say the experience was really one that was very informative to me. It is exciting about the work, people that believe in the school system, our teachers, our staff, the business partnership collaboration, the meeting we had before this, people who believe in the system want to do the most they can for the system. It's very encouraging as a superintendent of a school system that people ask, what more can we do? How can we get this done? And that is another, besides our internal capacity, the internal and the external capacity together is amazing. And so that's something that I have learned, that I have had a lot of contacts in my prior work, but this collaboration piece is resoundingly positive, and that was something that I learned quite well. So as we go forward, I know we will have challenges in programming. I know we will have all kinds of things we need to figure out together as the leaders of the school district, but I am very encouraged by the dedication of our staff, especially our leaders, our teachers, all of the people who work on all levels of our organization, and how we are working towards creating a team. I'm also very encouraged by how much everybody wants to collaborate in the organization. Overwhelmingly, many people want the Lowell Public Schools to be a very successful organization and to help it in many ways they can. So in recommending, what's the work? What's the work as we go ahead? Of course, the work I'm working on and my team is working on a 5-year plan. So unpacking those core goals of the district into ways that are manageable. And so that will be coming into you within the next month or so. I will start with my own self-assessment because that's the part of the process, and then the goals come after that. And so that's coming. Looking at class size and how we can look at early childhood increasing. We do have the opportunity this particular summer to offer an early childhood summer school for the little ones who have not had access to preschool before. So we're working on trying to get that going, looking at Race to the Top use. So that's part of the piece. Facilities and technology. Mr. Leary just talked about 5-year plan involving technology. So that's part of the planning. How is this going to evolve? Looking at Race to the Top, the alignment, Common Core, that's part of our work. And then differentiated instruction. So those first 3 goals are very critical. How do we know that each child is learning to the most of the capacity that they have? And so just a couple of small things, the whole educator evaluation tool, which I was doing part of the negotiation work with Paul before we came over here and his team today. So how that negotiation and how the new educator evaluation process fits in to the way we do business as a reflective and respectful learning experience for how people are teaching and leading. It's lots of information, but I wanted to give you feedback on what I have learned as your superintendent for the last 8 months, 7 months, I don't know, you lose count. But that's what I've learned, and lots what we know, and lots in establishing myself as the leader of this district. So I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you, Madam Superintendent, for this entry plan, and I've been impressed with the short time that we've been working together. I've truly been impressed with the work you've done. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the report? Entertain a motion to accept as a report of progress by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Conway. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have, as a report, graduation dates 2012. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Lowell High graduation. The graduation at the Songa Center will be Wednesday, June 6th at 6 o'clock. That Friday evening, as historically, will be the adult education graduation at the Irish Auditorium at Lowell High School.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to accept as a report of progress by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor, signify. Sure. Ms.
Just
Martin.
because historically what's happened is that we do, our high school graduation does fall on the same night as a meeting. If we could perhaps include in this motion that we will at this point cancel that school committee meeting with the understanding that if there are pressing issues, we can put it back on the docket. But generally it's been easier just to eliminate it at this point, and then if there was a real need to meet, we'd reschedule it.
I sense some support from the fellow members. So we'll include that as part of the motion that, as well as accepting this as a report of progress, that we'll cancel that meeting of June 6th. Motion by Mr. Gignac, second by Ms. Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a report from Aramark on the 6-month review, July through December of 2011. Excuse me. Next, we have a personnel report. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is your monthly report of all the retirements and resignations and new people who've been hired in our district for your review.
Move to approve by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Rosikowicz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a report on Aramark, the 6-month review, July through December of 2011. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a copy of the 6-month review, which includes all of the results of our work with the Aramark Corporation on school breakfast and summer and safety, and I'm sure that there's much information in this report that talks about the progress we've made as a group that works together.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. In looking at this report, one of the key things that kind of jumped out at me on page 12 actually was the information about systems and the idea, and I'm quoting from their report here, management taking ownership of sending out letters to families whose students have an outstanding balance starting at the start of the year. Now, I know that this is a motion that had recently been made by my colleague Ms. Scott and myself. I'm assuming that's not our answer, that there's a more comprehensive answer that we'll be getting.
Yes.
Not that I didn't enjoy page 12 of this 24-page report, but
I didn't bury it in there for you. No,
asking.
I think actually in this meeting I am going through the motion list and trying to provide responses. I think I got 3 of the Aramark ones on this report. But no, we actually do have a thorough report coming for you, if not the next meeting. Most likely the next meeting, if not the first meeting in April. But I actually have behind it all the different documentation, all the letters that are going out and timelines and things of that sort. So it is coming. Okay.
my only other comment was really in looking at page 22, looking at the grants that were put in place by Aramark in our district. I think it's a really impressive thing, and I think certainly as a district we need to applaud a vendor that we work with so closely, making that kind of investment in our district. These are, again, small teacher-led mini grants, basically, that have given, we've got 4 different ones that are in place right now. I just think it's a great system to have in place, and very appreciative of Aramark and the work that they've been doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the report? Motion to accept? Motion to accept by Ms. Scott, second by Mr. Gignac. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have the food service survey. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Within the next bit of time, there will be a survey. It's a student survey, and they will be taking a survey on quality and things on how, in fact, we can improve our lunch program and our food program. And so there's questions about pricing and quality and variety and service. And it will be an online survey that we will let our children take. So I imagine that's going to be facilitated in schools. I don't know if Mr. Lang has any more details on that particular process.
Not particularly. Well, just quickly. When we do the year review in June, we'll report on the feedback. But one of the things we'd asked Aramark to do was some surveys over the course of the year to gauge children's interest in the different foods and service and whatnot. So this is an online survey that they put together, and we'll share the results with you in June when we do the yearly review.
Thank you. Mr. Leary and then Ms. Rosikowicz.
Quickly, I know we talked a little bit, beginning the meeting, Mr. Sheehan articulated some positions relative to getting access to all students as well as parents. And we're also looking at, can we do the elementary level? I know it'll be more of a parent-driven survey. I think the point I think that Mr. Sheehan was making, and I do agree with this point, is we need to have the parents involved as well. I like the online with the students. I think that's very important because they're actually the people enjoying that product. But the parents should also be part of the survey. And we need to take a look not only online, but the old-fashioned way. I know we're talking about technology and how important it is, but some folks don't have that access, and we need to have more of a comprehensive grouping or selection of folks that we look at when we're doing these types of surveys to have them be meaningful. When we sit down with Airmac sometime, I guess during the before the end of this fiscal year, to go over their really face-to-face review, I think having that information from parents and a larger sampling would be of better value. I know other people might want to comment on that, but I think that's really, I think what Mr. Sheehan highlighted is a good point. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ross-Sikowicz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question. Was this sent home with all the students already, this flyer?
There's a flyer, I believe, that's sent home. The entire survey is not printed and sent home.
No, I understand that. I'm asking about the flyer because I haven't seen it, and I have 2 children in middle school, and I get all that information that they bring home. So this is new. This flyer is new to me, except I've seen it in my packet.
I know I've seen the flyer hanging in schools because I've been going around for budget meetings.
Okay.
I will find out for you. Perhaps it was just posted in the schools
All
for
right.
the kids, but I'll find out for you.
Because the survey closes next Friday.
Right.
So it's a really very short window, and I know my own children will welcome the opportunity to provide feedback on their experience with the food system. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Scott?
Actually reiterating a few things that Mr. Leary and Ms. Ross-Sikowicz said. I did not receive the survey home yet, and it closed in a week. And my other concerns were similar, that it says it starts at 5th grade and up.
Right.
So I don't know how they selected, the age group that they're going to send it to. And then that it's an online survey, and that we have a large population that doesn't have access to technology.
Right.
So, thank you.
Can I respond just for a second to that?
Mr. Lang.
I think their initial feeling was to try to get feedback electronically because they can get the results immediately. And they felt that the middle school and high school kids would be able to give some good feedback. I think they probably had some questions, and I'll confirm, just about the elementary school kids or anyone younger than that really giving valuable feedback that could be used in any way. I don't think it would be inappropriate because I actually did go online to take the survey, and you do have to identify your school and whatnot, so the elementary schools aren't included. I don't see why, when we're done the survey for the kids, because it's already out there and I know they're getting some feedback already, we couldn't re-advertise the survey and have it be done, a separate survey sent home with parents, and ask parents to actually take it with their kids. If they want to, that might be a way to get information from the elementary school. That would be valuable to use. So we could probably do that in April and include all the schools on the list. I'll speak with them about that next week when we meet.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Scott?
Sorry. I did have one more question, and it's more about the makeup of the survey. To me, it's very marketing driven. That's more about like what could we do to increase our sales versus addressing things about like food quality and billing issues and selection issues. I mean, there's a little bit here and there, but it's just very marketing driven, I think. So thank you.
Mr. Lang?
I have no comment.
Fair enough. I entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Ross-Sikowicz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a report, the MCAS free breakfast and snacks. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For a group of people who haven't probably eaten all day, all of these food reports are pretty challenging to us all. But just so you all know, during the MCAS, Sharon Lagasse has let us know that they will have free snacks for all students. And no matter being free or reduced lunch or beyond, everybody will have the snacks. We'll make sure breakfast is provided during the MCAS weeks, and it's free. And so 100% fruit juice. And so part of academic achievement comes to having our children well fed. So the food service department is making sure that we are well taken care of for that time.
Thank you. Any discussion on the report? Motion to accept by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mr. Gignac. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, under new business, we have the disposal of surplus vehicles. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Lang sent us this memo that is recommending that 3 of our vehicles are surplus, and they in fact, be advertised by the City of Lowell procurement officer for sale to the highest bidder. There are 3, you see what they are, and I believe this is a policy that we implement when in fact we have extra materials to go this way, so.
Thank you. Mr. Gignac.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Conway. All those in favor signify by, roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thank you. Next, under convention conference request, given the fact that there are a lack of snacks here and clearly attention is waning, I'd entertain a motion to take all 8 requests together. By Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Motion to approve by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz? Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? 7 yeas, approved.
Next, under professional personnel, we have the members of the United Teachers of Lowell hereby request to donate 6 sick leave days to the following teacher, Gretchen Garvey of Lowell High School, 25 days. So wish of the move for approval by Ms. Scott, seconded by Ms. Ross Sikowicz. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Under the adjournment portion of the agenda, we have a motion by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Conway. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.